tall mountain, and here's the straight up vertical path in which we will take you over sheer rock and boulders.
All right. And then moving on to a little bit further, I'm sure it was about halfway through, or well, I don't know. Let's ask you, when did you realize, or when did you say, like, this is my most essential item? Like, I could not do without. I'm so glad I spent the extra money, or I wasn't necessary to buy it, but I went out and bought it anyway. What is that lifeline item that you have?
My most essential item. Hmm. So that's a tough one. I've gotten asked that one actually a bunch on the trail, just from other through hikers and section hikers and whatnot. And honestly, there's no real one item that jumps out at me that I'm glad that I like is my go-to item. Like recently, one that I'm happy I put the bill on was a sleeping bag liner. In the beginning, I was a bit disappointed, or not totally disappointed, but I didn't use it at all until recently. So I was pretty much under the impression I wasted money. But recently, it has started to get cold, and my sleeping bag liner adds 15 degrees to my bag, which recently has been pretty damn nice. But other than that, there's really no item that leaps out at me that is just an essential item.
And how about
Pretty much
I know you know for me when I hiked with you for the 3.5 days, my luxury item I always bring camping everywhere is a portable radio. Do you have a luxury item of yours that you just you don't need the weight, but you say I'm gonna bring it anyway?
Yep, my luxury item is actually a bag of luxury items. It's a bag of books. That fluctuates in size, but it still remains. Recently, I cut it down to size when I popped back home for a wedding, but at one point it was pretty hefty. It was probably about a pound and a half of just unnecessary weight. It had a journal, two books, and my guidebook. And when I was home, I cut everything down a little bit, and I just had a book in my guidebook. But recently in Damascus, there was a little book sale, and I went a little crazy, and I bought three books that I think I'm gonna pack out with me.
Okay. And then not only do I want this is the first ever interview at AT Talk radio show. Not only do I want it to be entertaining, but I also want to educate. And a lot of people listening, whether it be in the near future, in the distant future, for 2013 or however many years they're listening down the road, what advice do you have? What did you do wrong in the beginning, or what did you see others doing wrong, or what did you say, hey, that's a really good idea? What advice do you have for someone planning out a through hike and then planning to carry out and finish the hike as well?
Um, in regards to just like early on mistakes, the one that is always advised against and that I advise against, but seems to always just be impossible to avoid, is that everyone packs too much in the beginning, and everyone starts off at a much heavier weight. Like I started, like my pack is down to about 30 pounds now. I started off with about 40, like 42, something around there, and I cut it down because I just had way too much food and useless gear that just didn't serve any purpose. And that's it's like a really big one, but it seems to be unavoidable, quite honestly, because I mean the first step to any big trip is to do research, 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 and through all this research, people kind of most people, like not all, but most kind of see what could possibly go wrong and plan for almost every contingency, and therefore buy a piece of gear for something that could possibly go wrong, even if it's the most minuscule thing, and bring way more gear than they need. Like, for example, in the beginning, it's I was under the impression I was going to be hanging my food all the time, every day, just because of bear activity. And for the first few days I did, and I did not know of the existence of paracord, so I just bought this cheap ass rope that weighed about a pound and a half and was huge and just not really functional at all. And I toted it in my side pouch to the 100-mile wilderness, and I got to Moss and I just threw it in a hiker box. And then what are some other recommendations here?
How about
Um,
any regrets you have looking back, like spending more time somewhere, less time? Anything you look back now and you're kicking yourself that you didn't do or you did do?
Regrets, if I ever had to do it again, I would do it with a bigger budget and I would slow down. Just not a whole lot because, I mean, it's a little rough to be out here for like 6.5 months. It's a long time, but I definitely would have slowed down in some sections, such as like the White Mountains or recently the Grayson Highlands, which I did not realize how small of a section it was. And I flew through the Grayson Highlands in about a day and a half, and I wish that I just prolonged that because that has recently just gone up to one of my favorite pieces of the trail. It was just completely beautiful and wide open areas, and I saw wild Shetland ponies. So slowing down is one, and then also another one is uh, town visits. Is they're fun, but it's it's a lot better to do a Nero than a zero, which is a Nero is doing almost zero, so like a half day. You kind of hike into town and hang out, or you hike into town and hang out all day, and then hike out to the woods and camp. Because staying at places eats up a lot of money, and then when you zero, you just end up spending more, and that's how a lot of people end up busting their budget. Is just too many town stops.
Well, let's stay on the budget while we're talking about it. If you don't mind, what did you do prior to your hike leading up to save money, and how much did you save, if you don't mind saying? And you said you wish you had a bigger budget. What did you have, and what would you, if you did it again, what would you want to have, and what would you recommend someone that's thinking about listening to this, thinking about through hiking? What would you recommend a
Um,
reasonable budget for them to have?
a reasonable budget. It's when all is said and done, I saved up and I left for Katahdin with about $2,700, which is a very doable budget if you really just keep an eye on it, and it's actually still a decent budget to have a decent time as long as you monitor it. But I didn't monitor it too well in the Mid Atlantic because Mid Atlantic is a little bit boring, so I spent a little more time in towns. So when all is said and done, I had to take out some small loans, and I'll probably end up spending around $3,700. So 4 grand is a solid budget to be around, anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000. 4 grand to do it pretty damn comfortably. 3 grand you can do it comfortably, but you have to slash some stays here and there, but still not too much. But 4 grand is a nice number to be around.
Now, one thing everyone says is if you go into town, you can spend money, but the one thing that kills you is lodging. I know you did a couple work for stays in New Hampshire, but did you ever get cheap lodging at like a motel where maybe three, four, five of you kind of were in a town, grouped up, and got somewhere to save money, or is most
Oh
of the
yeah,
time is it individual?
it's no, it's if you're in a nice big enough bubble and you have the people to do it, hotel rooms actually work out famously if you're traveling with a solid group of people at the time. Like let's see, uh, one off the top of my head in Front Royal, there was four of us split a double and ended up costing us like maybe $13 a piece for just a nice little hotel room with two doubles and TV, microwave, uh, functioning plumbing and shower, the basic basic works.
Okay. And now, I know